Here at Restorish and Tronics Fix, we are constantly on the lookout for dirty and broken video game systems. Today, my dirty yellow Game Boy Color finally arrived in the mail, so I finally have all 6 colors. These all need cleaned. I think most of them are working, but they've all been discarded by somebody. Let's test them and find out what works, and hopefully bring some life back into these discarded handhelds. In no particular order here, we're going to start with our yellow Game Boy Color, which is officially called Dandelion. Let's get some batteries in here and a tester game. And it looks like this one is starting up. So we need to try not to break this one as we clean it. It definitely needs a clean, but everything is functioning. So let's move on to our next one, which looks purple, but it is officially called Grape. We're going to give all of these the same treatment here. Once again, this one works. The green hue is called Kiwi. And I'm noticing right away, just looking here, that we have some battery corrosion that got on the inside. So that'll be something we have to take care of. Let's test it out. All right, it's loading up. It doesn't look like I'm getting any responsiveness from the buttons though. So this is going to be the first of these, at least, that we are hoping to be able to fix by cleaning. Next up is our red Game Boy Color, which is called Berry. And this one also seems to be working, so let's put it in the try to clean it without breaking it pile. And now I'm wondering, with colors like Berry and Kiwi and Dandelion, why this one is just called Teal. Couldn't we have found a fruit or plant or something in nature to name this color after? A surprising number of these are working for being handhelds that people just gave up on. Our final color, and the only one that is outside of the colors represented by the word color on the front, is this translucent Game Boy called Atomic Purple. And I think it's my favorite. I do want to apologize for the screen glare that we're getting from my lights here. It is really hard to get these non-backlit screens to show up on screen without just having the perfect angle of lighting on them, and while playing Mario, I'm just not that skilled. Let's start with our Dandelion here. We are going to try to carefully take this tape off so that we don't damage this nice Game Boy Color sticker on the back here. So I'm going to put a little bit of heat on it, and hopefully that will get us to be able to remove this Scotch tape without tearing it. And it is coming up, but it's leaving some residue behind, I can see. We'll clean that up later. I'm going to show you the teardown on this one like I would for a normal video when I'm doing just one console, and I can show every step of the process. And then we'll find a way to speed up or somehow get through the other ones without repeating this process like this 6 times. Want to carefully move these little tabs up so that we can get our cable out of here. It's nice that there's just 3 screws holding this board down, and it's pretty easy to get to. Now we know this one's already working, but I do want to take a quick look at this board and see if there's anything immediately visible that we're going to need to clean. You don't need to use tweezers to remove these, but I'm just doing it because it leaves everything nice and visible for the camera. So we have the actual screen itself, which is taped on here on the inside, and then we have on the outside a screen protector cover. Both of them are stuck on here, and we're just going to warm this up in order to be able to peel those back. Just a little bit of a gentle twist on this case, and I can get a spudger underneath there, and there we go. The actual screen is out, and now that this is already warmed up, we can just kind of carefully push around the edges here and remove the outside screen protector as well. It's a very satisfying sound. And we got some gunk down in there. I don't want to have to use Scotch tape to keep this battery cover on again, so since the clip is broken, I'm going to replace it. Let's label all of these boards so that we don't get them mixed up while we're cleaning. There we go. Everything is disassembled and ready to clean. When it comes to the plastics that we're dealing with here, I like to start by giving them sort of a surface bath with this warm water and Dawn dish detergent. But I don't want to put all of this plastic in here to soak. If it has a sticker on it, we're just going to save it until after we clean everything else in order to be able to not saturate those stickers and end up damaging them in the water. All the rest of the stuff can go in here though. About 15 minutes later, I'm coming back to it here with my paintbrush. Just good for getting that initial kind of gunk off of there. We're definitely going to have more sticker residue and permanent marker and whatever the white stuff is on the kiwi colored one here to remove. There's just something about seeing all of these colors here together that is so satisfying to me. Now that I'm done with the front half, I want to move on to the back half of these shells and carefully clean around these stickers. We'll switch to the toothbrush for these smaller pieces. I have had a number of people suggest using an ultrasonic cleaner for the amount of volume that I tend to do with these buttons and small pieces. And even though we have one around our shop here, Steve won't let me use it. He says the manual labor will help build my character. We already determined that all of these boards are working except for one, but we still want to give them a good clean. I like using the combination of this makeup brush with some isopropyl alcohol. These speakers are always a little funny for me to clean because of this plastic membrane on top of here. I'm going to scrape just a little bit of gunk off of here carefully with a dental pick and continue to clean the outside. BW100 is a contact cleaner that is safe on electronics, and I like it because I can use this jet spray to get inside of these ports or moving switches like the on-off switch here, and just kind of flush away any debris that may have gotten stuck inside of there. All done with the dandelion board, let's move on to the grape. And we'll just show you some of the highlights on the rest of these. Here we have our board that had the battery corrosion on it, so I'm going to do my best with a toothbrush, the IPA, and even a dental pick very carefully to scrape some of this corrosion away without damaging the board, hopefully. Apologies for one of the most awful sounds in the world. This is just flux residue that's stuck on here. It's not hurting anything, but we'll clean it up anyway. Something either got spilled or made a mess on its own on the inside of here. It looks like it could either be soda pop or some kind of gross residue from a bug that got inside of here. And I'm not going to give it the lick test to find out. That looks much better. Let's move on to the next one. Not much to see, as this is by far the cleanest board that we have. This screen sitting on top of my stack got a little smudge on it from something that I accidentally spritzed through the air while cleaning. So I'm going to wipe it off with a microfiber cloth, and then we'll just check these other ones, and they look good. Maybe a speck of dust or two that we'll remove after we get them on before we put the screen protectors on. Now that we have washed and dried these shells, we are going to just give them a quick check here with some cotton swabs and a little bit of IPA to remove things that we missed in the soapy water bath. And there's some kind of grossness stuck down on the inside of this grape colored shell. Still using our cotton swab with a little bit of IPA on it to remove these flecks of what I think is white paint, or maybe whiteout. On the yellow shell here, we have all of this Scotch tape residue. We're gonna just put some Goo Gone on here. This is safe for plastic surfaces. And just kind of let that saturate in there where the tape is, and we're gonna use a spudger and carefully kind of push this tape back out of the way. Being careful so that we're not actually scraping the system itself. Now we have this residue from the Scotch tape that's on top of this other sticker. And now that I've let it soak a little bit, there is just some really dried adhesive from that Scotch tape that is stuck on here. I think we got it all up though, and that looks pretty good. Another good candidate for the most annoying sound I can make today. To use or not to use Magic Eraser is definitely something a lot of people have an opinion on. My personal opinion is that as long as it is used safely and carefully and not used on glossy surfaces or painted surfaces, that it does a pretty good job at removing some of the staining that can get on this stuff. And I think that looks pretty good. I saved this berry shell for last because it is definitely the one that's going to require the most work. It has permanent marker kind of covering most of the surface, although a lot of it has cleaned off just from the soapy water or from whatever someone did before I got my hands on this. Personally, I think that looks pretty good, and I'm not worried that I'm damaging it. And looking at the Magic Eraser itself here, I'm not seeing red that I'm pulling out, which tells me that I'm not digging deep enough to pull any dye or coloring out of the plastic, and so we'll keep going. A few people on our Tronics Fix Discord have recommended that I try using a dry erase marker on top of permanent marker as a way of removing this. And I trust that other people know what they're talking about, but I still have a hard time believing that this is going to work. Interesting. So it's not getting everything, but I am impressed enough that it's removing enough of that ink that I'm going to keep trying this method. In my mind, this would work well on a whiteboard, which is maybe more designed to be less porous and more smooth. But I was worried that I wouldn't get the ink out of something like this, where there's just more places for it to kind of get in and hide. And it is definitely not getting everything, but it's getting enough of it that this is going to become a go-to method for me when I'm trying to remove permanent marker, to at least begin with this before I move on to other methods. So let's try finishing this now with the Magic Eraser. And I'm just going to take my time and not press too hard and go over it a bunch. And let's just show you the end product here. We have our shells, and I am happy with how clean they came out, and I don't see any damage on them. Let's put these all back together. When I clean these handheld consoles, the one thing I consistently like to replace, if possible, is the screen cover. So with these ones in particular, I ordered these plastic covers that are going to replace the ones that we took off here. I like giving these old consoles new life, and I think the new screen cover on top of them is one of the best ways to give it that new feel, even though for the most part you're still using something that has been discarded and giving life to something that otherwise would have probably just ended up in a landfill. All right, they look great, but do they work? Let's test each of them out and make sure that in our zeal to clean, we didn't ruin them. First one is good. Dandelion done. Let's move on to the grape. Oh no, this is not what I want to see. Because if I believe correctly, this one was working before I got my hands on it. And I must have done something in my clean to ruin it. Bummer. Well, let's set it aside and test the other ones, and we'll come back to it in a minute. On to the kiwi, and looking good so far. Berry. Perfect. Teal. Yep. And atomic purple. And this one is good as well. So let's go back to looking at that grape one and see if we can figure out maybe what we did wrong. Just looking at the board here, and I see a few places that maybe could be cleaned a little bit better. And while I don't think that is causing the issue that I'm seeing of not getting any response out of it, let's go ahead and do that since we have it taken apart. And just make sure that this is really cleaned and we don't have any place accidentally causing a electronic bridge or something between circuits. So very carefully, there was a little spot here we need to remove. Make sure you are good and clean. Let's test you out again. That is not what I'm hoping to see. Quite colorful though. Let's just take this back out, put it in. Ooh, a backwards logo, back to our rainbow lines. One more try, backwards logo, lines. Okay, we did something here. Unfortunately, I can't figure out what I did, and even the great and powerful Steve took a look at this and can't see anything wrong with it. So we are just going to complete this project by swapping this board out. Fortunately, this does give me a reason to use a perfectly good working board inside of a system with a broken screen, and we were able to give life to something else in the process. If you're interested in joining the Tronics Fix/Restorish Discord, I'm going to leave a link for that in the description. It's a really cool community, and we've been having a good time over there, but we definitely could use some more Restorish representation. So come on over. If you enjoyed this video simply because of the amount of parts and color in it, you might enjoy this other video that I did where I disassembled and cleaned and put back together a bunch of Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons. Thanks for hanging out with me, and we'll see you next time.